All right, so we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. Let's see, Kyle, welcome. Melissa, Lindsay, Pramod, William, excellent. We got 5 people on already. We got quite a few coming, so we won't be doing the roll call the entire session here. But hey, Mark, before we even get started, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're doing these first 5 minutes?
Yeah, so what we thought we'd do for this first 5 minutes is to model that piece within a situation like this of starting the social chat already. I think you might have noticed with in-person meetings, often you get that moment to kind of walk to the meeting where you do some of the social stuff, like how are you and how's stuff going, and you kind of check in with people socially, and then the agenda starts. What tends to happen in situations like this is the agenda starts immediately and nobody does any of the social stuff. So let's model a bit of that, because it helps the meeting or communication flow a little bit. So Michael Leckie, how you doing? What's going on in your end of the woods? Literally the woods, because you live in a wood, don't you?
I do. I live in suburban Connecticut. Which is we're ways out, but we're still, we're a little bit of a hotbed here in the tri-state area around the COVID-19. So we're all kind of hunkering down and working from home. But so far so good. Everyone is safe and continuing to work, and
Good.
looking forward to the weekend. I told a friend earlier today I had 2 new deliveries to the house today that are kind of suspect. One was a couple of cases of wine, and the other was a new chainsaw. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with the 2 of those, if they mix together or not. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah. You don't want to get that.
How about you, my friend?
You don't want to get that mixed up. What have I got happening at the weekend? Well, you know what? Tomorrow I'm doing one of these for a sales organization, and then on Sunday I'm doing a keynote in the Netherlands, but obviously I can't go to the Netherlands.
Sure.
I'm doing a 9 o'clock keynote in the Netherlands, which means I'm getting up at 3 o'clock. Well, I'm getting up for 3 o'clock in the morning to do a keynote here.
Well, yeah. So
the first time I've ever done that.
I see that Amund and David have joined us, who I believe are both over in Europe. So, hey, you guys get your revenge. You don't have to stay up so late. Mark will have to get up early for the thing he's doing. It won't benefit you this time, but it goes.
Yeah. But over here, so I'm in, for people who don't know, I'm in Toronto, Canada. And, it's very quiet here at the moment. People are staying inside, keeping their social distance when they are out. Very much, I guess, as people are seeing all over the world at the moment.
Yeah. And for those of you just, walking in the room, what we're doing is kind of having a bit of the conversation that oftentimes happens as you're walking into the meeting, walking into the room when you're there and live. So we went ahead and launched 5 minutes early. Some people might want to pop on, not just look at a blank screen. We haven't started a broader conversation with the rest of you at this point. And most of this conversation, it'll be just us live, of course, and then it will be the 2 of you. The rest of you can ask him some questions as well. So that's what we're doing. It's not really started. We'll start again we'll actually start in a couple of minutes, and we will start on time as well. One of the things that's important to do is really to start to set a bit of a pattern of behavior. Maybe it is you're going to get there 5 minutes early, or that someone's going to be there in the room, literally, figuratively, and that we're going to start on time. Probably even better behaviors than we have when we're in the physical office, actually.
Exactly, but as you were saying, Michael, what we're trying to model here is that walk to the meeting where some of those social elements get done that make the agenda of the meeting easier to flow through. David saying, "Hi guys, happy to see you again." Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah,
good to see you.
All the way from the Paris region, I assume, David. Good to see you. Excellent.
So it was David who introduced us to some great restaurants in Paris.
It was, yes. For those of you who don't know our friend David on this chat here, maybe you may not, he is the master of the great places to go, the local places in Paris. Robert and Louise, probably the best steak I've ever had in my life. So we're glad to have you on. You always make a contribution.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, it's that moment of kind of calling out people who are in the room on that social level is the kind of thing that might well happen in usual meetings if they were face-to-face. Why not do them here? Because it's those call outs that help the agenda of the meeting often have less friction in them in the first place. Anyway, sorry, Michael, over to you, Mike.
No, I was going to say before we start here as well, one of the things that that you always taught me, and I don't mean to sound like it's a disingenuous thing, but know the name of some people, address some people by name. It doesn't mean you have to read off 200 people who are coming into the chat room, but address a couple if you know, and it makes it feel more like, hey, who's in the room. Even if I don't talk to you specifically, calling some folks out by name just makes it feel a little bit more personal and connected. So, yeah. All right, so it is time. We're going to get rolling. So one of the things to know is that you probably get eye contact with Mark the whole time. And by the way, Mark, today you are Sandra Bullock. We'll explain that later. But from time to time, I'll be giving you my direct attention to look at the screen, look at some of the notes that are coming in the chat, so I can do that. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm just doing what I need to do to focus on you and what we're doing. So over the next half hour, we're going to work on how do you have presence when you're not present. And really, to summarize what we're going to do is we're going to get into how to do it, the practical things. We're not going to delve a lot into theory, maybe touch on it a tiny bit, but mostly we're going to be doing things that we know work. And a lot of this comes from Mark's decades of work in this area, and I've worked with him for probably 15 years. We'll be reframing some of what we know works into this situation that we find ourselves in this distance world. And we'll talk about how you impact others and how it impacts you. So Mark, anything you want to say before we dive right into this?
No, I think that's absolutely perfect. But I will pick up on one thing that you said earlier, which is calling out people in order to get that kind of social element in there. In these kind of environments, it's easy in, easy out. It was easy for you to get on this call, so it's easy for you to leave this call. When you call people out, just a few, not all, it kind of triggers people's minds into going, oh, hang on, they know I'm here, they see me. It makes it more difficult for you to leave the meeting. In physical meetings, it's socially tough for you to get up and leave. Here, we simply can't see you. You could be doing your email right now. If you are doing your email right now, I'd advise against it just for this half an hour. We'll keep it really engaging for you, and we're going to give you some great help around this. So, certainly I've turned my email off. I've taken my mobile phone and I've put it a long distance from me so that just for this half hour, I can stay completely engaged with Michael Leckie here and give you my full attention. It's just half an hour. Give us your full attention back. Thanks very much.
Excellent. And welcome, Thomas. I see you've jumped in the chat as well from our good old Gartner days. Nice to have you here all the way from Finland, I believe. So Mark, before we start to kind of interacting, why don't we talk a little bit about where we're at and how things are kind of set up and the choices we made, just even with how we're appearing on this video conference.
Yeah, okay. So look, the principles I want us to pay attention here to are when insufficient data, we default to negatives. It's just a human heuristic, an algorithm that our instinct plays. If we don't have the data, we're less likely to be optimistic, we're more likely to be pessimistic. Now, we're in an environment right now due to a health crisis, and because of that, some work and financial implications around that it's a generally pessimistic atmosphere right now. I think we'd have to agree. Do we need to make it any more pessimistic? My guess is no. Do we want to bias people towards more positive ideas in order to lead them? My guess is yes. So here's some of the ways we can do this. If you can't see me, when insufficient data, you'll default to more negatives. If I were live, your peripheral vision would be picking up way more. So I need to show you more of my data. Therefore, you can see the way I'm sat now, you can't see below my sternum level right now. I could move myself a little further back here, and let you see more, and do what I call open palm gestures at navel height in the truth plane here. That can win more trust and credibility with you for sure. But with the optic of this lens, it's put me more in social space with you, less personal space. And I want to win a bit more personal space with you. So I am going to come forward. It means I need you to see my hands a little bit more so you can see no tools, no weapons, nothing in my hands. You're getting sufficient data. That means my hands come up to passion here. It gets me a little bit more excited, but that's kind of okay because I need to keep your attention. and you're used to images on your computer via, you know, film and television that you've been watching here that are quite animated, they're quite lively. So there's not a big downside to this. Normally, if we were live and you were a leader, I'd be saying, okay, I would keep a little bit stiller, keep in the truth plane, take up real estate, take up space, but stay calm and assertive. In this situation, I'm saying be a little bit more animated. Let me give you a few other things, Michael Leckie. I'm well lit because I need you to see as much of me as possible. So I've got the light coming in at me from the windows, which means I've turned desks around, yeah, so that I can get the light on me. I've got other lights going on around me. You don't need those. I can go through some ways that you can easily and cheaply throw light on yourself around that, but understand I'm well lit. Because our eyes go to the light, they don't go to the darkness. And darkness is associated with negative and light is associated with positive. It's a metaphor that's been around for literally since we invented language, the idea of light and dark. And if I show up in the dark for you, you default to negatives. But if I show up in the light for you, you default to more positives around me and my leadership. So you can see more of me, okay? Yeah. Height dominance will cause a negative. Yeah, Michael.
Before we actually move past that, I want to point out one specific way of being in the dark that I think is everywhere in these type of communications and a bit insidious. And it happened to me a couple of nights ago. I was on a call, it was about 35 people. And this is what I saw. Little dots with their initials backwards. And sometimes when somebody spoke, they go on camera for a minute and then shut off. And it was like having your blinders on. It's like talking to an audience and the audience was hiding from you. And it was disconcerting. It felt disconnected. I found my mind wandering. I kept my camera on the whole time. I started thinking, well, if I've got my camera on, geez, am I doing something? Am I scratching in a bad way? But I've got to tell you that looking into that page of nothing was really hard to connect. After I made a comment or two, started turning it on, but be wary of that. You know, it doesn't matter. Well, we can talk about what you're wearing. We'll talk about that in a minute, but you know, figure out a way that you can be in a place where you can be there and be on that camera, not just be sitting in the background, you know, more like they used to call it lurking on the internet, right? Don't lurk, be present. So thank you, Mark. You were going to.
This is not the time to be in the witness protection scheme.
That's right.
Get the light in front of you. Don't be in silhouette. Don't be, I mean, it's very easy for me to turn my camera off here for you right now. Okay, and my voice is still present with you and so forth. But my guess is you're way less engaged than you were before. So let me switch that camera back on for you right now. You can see the big difference that the visual image makes. So height dominance will cause a negative attitude. My camera is on my laptop. I generally use my laptop as a laptop. And we tend to find people on these kind of calls, including some of the top leaders out there, are using their laptop as a laptop and going onto a call. So I have my laptop on a recycle bin at the moment. But look what happens if I just have height dominance over you. Here. Yeah. And if I say to you, okay, so now we're going to look at the numbers. And you know, I want you to pay close attention to the numbers that we're seeing right now. Okay, I'm using the same tone of voice, but I'm just going to raise my laptop so you're at the eye level with me, so I don't have dominance with you anymore. And I'm going to say we're going to look at the numbers. Yeah, do you feel more optimistic about those numbers now that I don't have height dominance around you anymore?
You're asking me the question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Waiting for somebody else to answer. Adrian just chimed in. I'm guessing he's tall because he said, sadly, I had huge dominance over my team members at some times. But yeah, it makes a difference. I mean, and not that you aren't handsome from all angles, but looking up your nose is not near as interesting as looking at you straight on, which is kind of what I'm used to doing, at least in most circumstances when we work together.
Yeah, and let me just give you one more thing, Michael, which is I'm trying to get eye contact with you down this camera here, but there's so much more going on around me here that's trying to grab my attention. This is quite a lot of neural load, a lot of equipment around me. So I place this little smiley above there to get the eye contact, and also to try and generate something of a small but genuine smile from you. Not a big, broad, grin from me, but something just to trigger me that I'm talking to other human beings through that lens, and I should get my eye contact with the lens. When you get eye contact with other human beings, it raises levels of oxytocin. Oxytocin creates more optimism. So again, all of these things, I'm trying to get you to see as much of me as I can, light it well, get good eye contact with you, not have height dominance, so you are more optimistic about my leadership message. Hope that helps, Michael Leckie.
Yeah,
Any thoughts, questions around that?
One thing, first I'm going to say thanks to Jonathan Israel. Also mentioned that he's got an $18 laptop stand instead of the recycle bin, but Mark likes to recycle everything, but there's so many ways you can do that. It's so easy just to raise that up. And today it's interesting, like I hear your voice and I know your voice, I can see your gestures in my peripheral vision, but as I mentioned earlier, instead of a smiley face, I've got a little 2-inch high happy Sandra Bullock smiling at me, because that's oxytocin inducing for me anyway. But I'm spending my time with her, looking at me as I'm listening to the rest of you. I'm glancing at the screen once in a while, but it's an unnatural act for me to just focus at that little camera. I want to look at you, and I want to have this conversation with you, which means that I'm not having the conversation with you. So just that camera awareness, I think, is critical. By the way, thanks for the comments, and keep them coming. Here's a question a little bit more about, oh, thanks, Jen, from, can you talk more about lighting ideas? So go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so I'm going to stay away at the moment from expensive lighting ideas that you could go out and buy. Well, actually, let me give you just the cheapest one you can do, and it works really well. Obviously, stick yourself in with a window light daylight coming onto you. Buy one of these lights here, which is for seasonal affective disorder. Yeah, you'll get it from Bed Bath Beyond or whatever. It'll cost you a few dollars, and you're going to stand that there, and that's going to throw daylight onto your face. That's very, very cheap. Here's an even cheaper one. You order from Staples or whatever, one of these big Bristol board things. Yeah, it's for putting some kind of display on. This is my son Lex's. He's got his science display on that side, okay? And all you do is get any kind of domestic light, and you bounce the domestic light off of that, and that will bounce onto your face. You can actually literally put this round the back of your laptop, and it'll bounce huge amounts of light onto your face. If you put light on your face from small bulbs very directly, you'll get lots and lots of shadow. I've got some fancy lights here that are putting light onto my face, and I also stick Post-it notes on them, so I've got notes about what I'm going to talk about. I've got another light here, which is lighting up the rest of the room. But I have to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn those lights off. Hold on there a second, Michael. Let me just switch that one off, and I'm going to switch this one off as well. You'll notice it's got a little bit grayer, a little bit darker in here, and a little bit bluer, because I was using those lights to get some warmth in here, and I've got a little more shadow on this side of the face. But you can see that the gray daylight is lighting me up enough here. And if I get this board here and just bounce a little bit of light onto me, you'll probably notice a little bit of a difference right there.
Easy, quick home tips. Then you can get the fancy lights, but you don't necessarily need to. What you need to do is just kind of pay attention to what's going on. Interesting comment here from Andrew's talking about, got a strong pattern wallpaper as their background. Is that a bad idea? So Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what you think, why your background is what it is?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to avoid with my background is a clear, flat, white wall or gray wall. Because what happens is in real life, our brain is trying to work out what have we got in front of us. And it does that partly by getting other things in the environment and going, well, I know that's a chair, and I know that's a lamp, so I can kind of work out how that space is set out. But once you have just a flat surface behind you with nothing on it, the brain just goes, oh, I don't know, where are you? Where are you right now? It doesn't have any context. So I'm trying to get us in an angle here where we've got intersecting walls, because that's just a little bit more interesting. There's some perspective there. We've got objects in the background that you would roughly know the size of, and therefore your brain is able to go, I've got a fairly good idea of where this is and some of the objects in there. Now also, some of the objects in there might give some people some clues about me, who I am, the kind of person I am, the kind of leader that I could be. It may show you some of the ideas or values that I have. So it's a context that can help you have some kind of opinion about me. Because if I don't put any context, you will make up the context in your mind, and I won't be in charge of the meaning of me for you, or certainly I won't be able to influence the meaning of me for you. Does that make sense, Michael Leckie?
Yeah, it does. It does. So a couple of things there. One, I think the question, just touch on it real quick and get back to what you just said, like the patterns. What I would say is what I always do. I have a Mac. You might not. You might have different. What you all got a program that allows you to take pictures of yourself through your camera. Turn it on, and just check things out and move it around. Patterns, I think, Andrew, it's one of those patterns that looks really strange on the camera, like some shirts do. You might want to consider something different. If it doesn't, just see how it looks and ask a couple of folks, what looks right. I mean, for me, different setup. I've got some little knickknacks and things back here. I've got my name in case I forget who I am. I've got some art that my wife created. I rotate that through. So if anyone wants to buy that, let me know. I'll get you the website. A little extra sales. And then just trying to have a space. Tell you honestly, what about this thing? Now this makes me look good. I look like I know what I'm doing. This is like $150 for the whole setup at Amazon. It works just as well as anything else, but it also focuses and makes it look like I'm really here in this studio space for you. It looks more like what we're used to when we see someone on camera. In fact, to that note, tell us a little bit about what your choices were in dress today, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to go back on that patterning thing, one thing that you could do if you think you have patterns back there that people won't really be able to comprehend and they might be tricky, is just get a picture that would be easily recognizable and hang that up. And therefore it's very easy for the brain to go, yeah, I don't know what that pattern is, but I know that that's a picture of a pastoral scene or a portrait of somebody. So what have I decided to wear today? I've decided to wear exactly what I would wear if I was doing, if I came to work with you as a consultant, or I was doing a keynote to your organization, or I was in a meeting with you. This is my work uniform. And the reason I've decided to do that is this is something I can control. I can't really control to an extent where we have this meeting today. This is the room that isn't used by my kids who are doing, digital school at the moment, or there's cooking going on for lunch going on elsewhere. This is the room, and I'm limited with my choice here. I'm not limited with my choice on what I wear. So I make a strong decision about that. And the decision is you're going to see me in the kind of clothes you'd have seen me with if you've ever worked with me. So that I can keep constant. I'm not saying that that's the right choice for you, but it's a choice that I can make, and it's the right choice for me. Yeah. Why have you decided to wear what you're wearing today, Michael Leckie?
Well, I mean, most of the time you're on stage, and much of my time I'm with my clients consulting. But what I want to do is I wanted to, say, look, this is what I wear when I'm at home. And for my choice, I wanted to, it is my home office. And yes, there is some things staged about it, but I wanted to invite people into my home. And so, Mark said, well, what would you wear if you were just sitting around the house? And I say, no, t-shirt and a kilt. So, I mean, you got to be comfortable. So that's the choice I made. I went for comfort. I went for airflow, and it was my choice that makes me feel happy. And also it's really hard. Not that I'm saying this is the recommendation I'd take away most of all from this session. It's really hard not to feel happy when you're wearing a kilt. So question, we have One question was about virtual backgrounds. Thank you, Jermaine, for that. Real quick, I don't know what you think, Mark, but for me, virtual backgrounds, they can be a lot of fun as long as they're not too crazy. What I like to do, though, is make mention of them before I go forward. Say, well, I was on one of these with a guy from Microsoft the other day, and it was his car in the parking garage. Why, I don't know. But he goes, I'm coming to you live from the garage here today. It felt like a safe place to be. Nobody's here. And so he kind of made a joke out of it, but it was kind of fun. And you saw him in that, sort of setting he'd selected for himself. So maybe make a quick remark and just make it not overwhelming as well, because it was kind of gray with the car in the background. It wasn't distracting, but it was kind of fun for him to do. There's a question here.
They're fun. The virtual backgrounds are fun. I think the real benefit of this is we can be introduced to something of the real you. And that's really important at this moment, that what part of your home will you let us into so that we gain this connection to you at a time when we are isolated from others and isolated from our leaders.
So, Mark, we spent a lot of time, and I appreciate the questions on some of the, these mechanics of it. But let's step back a little bit, because a lot of us are getting these conversations, and we're leading things. We're working with leaders. So, tell me just generically, what shows people that you're a leader from the toolkit that you have while you're on this small screen? How can you show you're a leader with what you? Oh,
yeah. So. Yeah, I did hear you. Or certainly I can guess at what the end of that question was. Here's the main thing, and it's still about nonverbal, but it's that piece about frequency. How often are you showing up? Actually, to be honest, it doesn't so matter, how well you're lit and any of this stuff. It's, are you showing up consistently for people? Are you showing up consistently to help them? So some leaders that I'm noting at the moment that I've worked with, they are doing, an hour's open office consistently at the same time every day, and ask me anything. And they sit there like this in front of their monitor at their home office, and they start talking about what's going on, and they get other people on the line, other members of the team on the line with them, having a conversation. It's quite, it's very social. At the same time, it has important content in it. And at any point you can go, I need to ask you about this, or I just want to say hi, or I just want to say you're doing a great job, or I just want to say I got a colleague who's doing a great job at the moment, or I just want to say I'm super worried about this aspect here. And it's an hour, and anybody can join in and will be recognized. And it's the same every day. Yeah. That for me is a great piece of leadership. What am I seeing some others do? Not so good. Well, they've shown up once on a video that they made, most likely from their cottage, and kind of went, it's really hard time at the moment. I know, I'm certainly suffering, and the business is suffering. So no, you're holed up in your cottage somewhere. And essentially what they should be doing is trying to do this social thing. If I were a leader of this organization that we're talking to right now, Michael Leckie, I would have you on this call, and I would want to make this as social as possible. It would not be just me. I need to get the team on the call. Yeah, I need to show we're a team, we're consistently a team every day, and you can ask us anything at any point, and we'll try and give you a good answer. We will, not me, once a month from the cottage. Yeah, I hope that makes sense to you, Michael.
It does. And so two things I'll say to that. One is, first of all, it sounds like I must have cut out a little bit earlier. So here's the thing, always check your equipment. I have to go to Wi-Fi to print, but I have a hard into my camera and my laptop and my big computer, so I never have any lag. But I have to change that, and so I had a bit of a lag. So always check your equipment. The second one is, though, in a different vein, so I'll be doing another webinar actually with the CEO of HouseBase at the same time next Tuesday. If you're interested, let me know. But what we'll be talking about is we put together an approach for digital town halls. That's exactly what we're recommending to people. They're getting besieged with requests, and so we've just put together a framework for it, which is simply, how do you have a dialogue? And now, Here's one of the challenges, and one of the things we haven't been able to do as well here. We're very cognizant, both of us right now, that trying to be engaging, entertaining, and useful, that it's just us. And that we're calling you out a little bit by into you, by reading your comments, but it's not an ongoing conversation. It's a one-time thing, and it's certainly mismatched. So tools out there, I happen to believe just I'm a huge house space is one of them, that allow you to maintain a dialogue both synchronously and asynchronously. And I think that once you start to really master doing this stuff, which at the same time synchronously, you have to start thinking about how am I going to keep it going when I'm not on that camera? When am I going to have that? But to Mark's point, it's all about that consistency and that presence to show people you're there. So Mark, I know we got 3 minutes left. Why don't you talk a little bit to the folks about how do you and make sure people understand that you're listening, and how does that help you?
Yeah. So again, it's cutting out a little bit, so I'm going to presume I got this question right, which is how do you let people know that you're listening? Well, you jump into questions as soon as you can. You get into their questions as soon as you can. It's very easy for leaders to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and never really address what people want to know. And here's one way we're going to do it. We had some content that we wanted to get out. We wanted to get into questions as soon as we could as well. But what we're going to do, because we'll close down this meeting in about 4 minutes time, because again, we want to keep people on time. We want people to know that we respect their time. And though it may feel like, you know, what are you going to do? People still have agendas that they need to keep to in the rest of their life. But we'll keep the channel open. So we're going to keep the channel open for, 10, 15 minutes. And if people want to remain and give us questions, we'll answer anything. If you want to go and you need to go, absolutely. Totally understand that. But if you want to stay, ask us more questions. We will answer those questions. This is being videoed. So if you want to find out what questions were asked and get that content, you just come back and watch the video of that. Let's just answer one last question, which there was a question there, Michael Leckie, which is about, would you have everybody's images up during a town hall meeting? How much do you let them ask questions? I mean, I think we can understand the more people you have there, the more difficult it is to manage everybody getting a say. What's your opinion on that, Michael?
Yeah, I think, seeing as many people as possible is valuable. I mean, because again, you want to check in and kind of see what's happening. I'm checking, Mark's face, but I'm not looking much at him. I'm listening to him. I'm glancing down. That'll be my periphery vision. So I think, and as many as possible, I like, because it gives you that sense of the room being full. And to that, maybe the last thing I would say is that for me, being taught these techniques over the years by Mark, is that I feel more engaged. I feel more present because of what I'm doing, because I'm inhabiting these things. It helps me. My energy level is up. I feel good. Even though I can't see you, a couple of questions coming to me, make me feel connected to you. And so don't underestimate how it's a virtuous cycle kind of feeding back on itself that helps you stay engaged. And you'll find pretty soon that you'll get to that point where this is not difficult at all. It just takes a little bit of effort and some of these tips and tricks to get it over the hump. So
yeah, so one thing I want to say to that, Michael Leckie, is it's certainly not as difficult if you don't do it alone. The moment you start doing this alone, you've set yourself a huge task in order to make this work. Your performance skills and your cognitive skills, like, you've got to be so on it. The moment you get a good partner on this, you relax a lot more. You've got that social link. The partner can model interaction with the audience. So to that thing of how do you get a big audience asking you questions? Well, you go through the avatar of the audience. You go through the sidekick. You take it through that person, because you're not going to be able to handle it. If you're there trying to lead and produce content and take questions at the same time, your mind will explode. It's too much to handle. over to you, Michael Leckie, to take us out.
We're at time, so let's kind of conclude this and move forward. In conclusion, I want to say thank you for joining. Most of you signed up, joined, which is great. We had a lot of people who registered. We will put this out so it can be viewed and shared and given to other people if you found value in it. And we will stay on for another few minutes afterwards as long as there's questions, up to 10 of those. Just to say that if you want more, you can feel free to reach out to us. You can just go to my website, which is silverbackpartners.net, or even email me at michael@silverbackpartners.net. That's silverback like the monkey and partners like, well, partners. And we'll be glad to talk to you about what we do as well. If you are an executive leader, if you have people you want us to work with, obviously we're happy to. But we didn't do this to do a sales pitch. We wanted to be able to give something back during this time and figure out how we can help. And one of the best ways is just giving away something that we know how to do. So that's it officially for today. We're going to conclude this. And thank you for being on. If you want to drop off and go about with your day on a timely manner, go ahead. And if you want to hang on, we'll keep an eye on the chat for a few more minutes and see if there's more questions. So Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you all for listening and watching.
That's it.
Lovely.
For now. Okay, let's see. I got a great content.
Great. Yeah, what have we got there?
Personal. A lot of thank yous. Let's see if there's anything else here. Oh, hey, the network lag. So I had that today, despite all the work I'd done. Yeah. What do you think about how did you handle the network lag, and what do you do with that, Mark, when you have a lot of it?
Yeah, interesting. Because it's just so very hard to know, have I heard that right? Is it me? Is it you? And so I think number one, as I was doing there, I got to call it out and go, I didn't quite hear the end of that. At the same time, my best bet is to continue with maybe what I think I heard. And know that if I've got it completely wrong, Michael, you'll go, Mark, you got that completely wrong. Here's what I was actually asking.
Yes.
Yeah. And that we're not there to get in an argument around technical. Well, yeah, because I didn't understand that, Michael, because as I said before, there was network. It's just like, okay, I got that wrong. Let me get this right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, one of the mottos I kind of operate by is hide in plain sight. You said before, Mark, call out when you're compromised. Just name it. Everyone sees it going on. It's not, oh gosh, there was a glitch. Hey, there was a glitch. What do you want to do about that? And call it out and move forward.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to answer two here, which is, well, there's one about how do you convey passion? Get yourself up in the passion plane. Get your hands up into chest level. That's going to get you that outside broadcast passion and not the newsreader anchor detachment. Okay, so up here, there was another question there from how do you manage discussion? Do you let people raise their hand? There is that raise hand option on some of these. Again, I want to get a partner on it and get them to handle the discussion. Otherwise, it's too hard to deal with.
Yeah. I think that's kind of critical. If you're running a large meeting, if you can have someone help or partner with you to kind of, look at the questions and stuff, that can help. If not, you got to do the best you can and kind of call it. Hey, I'm going to take a pause and take a look at the questions here. I'm going to see who's raising their hand. Kind of call out the actions. You're saying in a minute, I'm going to look at who's raising their hand. It's really a little bit more just telegraphing your emotions, which quite frankly aren't bad for meetings in person either. Brad, I see you've got a question about audio setup. Yeah, so Mark has a lapel mic specifically because we knew he was going to step back and show you some of the truth plane. Otherwise, we would just work with the mic there. I think the most important thing is to make sure that you do have a good mic. And one of the things you can do is simply ask someone or test beforehand, can you hear me? How working? Can I hear you? I had a call with someone earlier and we had this great conversation. I said, hey, how are you? He said, I'm fine, how are you? And I was like, well, can you do something so I can hear you? Oh yeah. So if it's not working, let them know early. And that's one of the great reasons to have the kind of pre-meeting meeting to get people in there.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of backups. So I've got the lav mic here. I've got another mic here. If this goes down, I'm also using this Bluetooth set as well, and it's got a mic on here, and I could switch to that. So yeah, I'm prepared for anything and everything going down here.
So Ahmed here, very well-known consultant in your own right. Thank you for joining us.
Great.
How do you manage client meetings, let's say with 2 people on your side and 2 on the client side? So kind of the meeting management. I've got some thoughts. Mark, why don't you go ahead and give us a couple too?
Yeah. So it's kind of similar to how I'd want to manage my side or our side anyway in a live meeting. Is I've got to be really careful that we know what our function is, because otherwise it's so difficult to know, when's it my turn to talk? Should I jump in here? But if I've said to Michael Leckie beforehand, look, Michael, here's what I think, or, what do you want your function to be during this meeting? Here's what I think mine is. If anything comes in around this, can you jump in and handle it from that point of view? So that we've got very specific roles around this. That's the first way I'd go, and I'd go that way whether it were like this or not. Michael, what's your thoughts?
Well, we did the same thing. I mean, we've worked together for well over a decade and shared the stage many times, and yet we got going today before we dialed into this. We said, well, what's our social contract? The same as, well, hey, if I take the stage, you yield it. If you take it, I yield it. We don't fight for space on it. We do things like when Mark's talking or I'm talking, he's playing the, hey, my partner's amazing game, just kind of looking and supporting and being there for him.
Let me just interrupt you there for a moment, Michael, and I just want you to notice when I say, let me interrupt you just there for a moment, Michael, he yields immediately. He doesn't go, but I wanted to finish the thing about the thing. He just gives over to me. Michael, can you just say a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just you stepped in, you have something to say. And so I trust that you have that. And we know what our roles are. They're not cast in stone, but we know what they are, and they work real well. So I think social contract is important everywhere, but especially before you start. And also, what do you want to get out of this? Now, I know there's a lot of folks on from Gut Check as well. Thank you for joining us. I think a lot from the sales community. If you're with someone else, I think you want to through, what are the roles that you want to play, but also what do you want to get out of it? It's important out of this conversation to get someone to agree to something, to move to a step. Make sure you have that goal in mind and explicit. And quite frankly, you might put it like right here, I have impact others, impact you, and here's how to do it, practical. They're sitting right here next to Sandra Bullock. So I know what the main goals we have for this are. No matter what happens, if I get lost in it, I go back to those and I know that'll keep me on track.
So actually, Michael, let me just talk a little bit to the sales team that are on here at the moment, because I've been working a lot with sales teams at the moment. And one of the things I've been saying is try and get on the sales call with a partner. My guess is either you partner up on this kind of on sales calls anyway, or maybe you don't. Maybe you have some inside salespeople and you're out in the field. Maybe not. I don't know what your usual setup is, but whatever it is, if you can start to get a partner on the call, all the better. Try not to do it alone. You'll always come across better as a strong team than you will on your own. It's hard to do on your own, especially now. So partner up if it's at all possible.
Now, as my friend Dave Scarnetto's would know, I'm not an IT guy because you always have to call him when there's something wrong. But I will say this: how do we control Zoom bombing? It's been in the news a lot. There's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, this is a webinar. So this webinar, to do a webinar, we can have up to 10,000 participants and 10,000 attendees viewing and 100 participants. That was an extra $40 for the month for us to be able to do that. But you are able to Zoom bomb and take over because you're not full participants, you're attending the webinar. If I'm doing it with attendees, you can go into Zoom and you can set whether or not people can share anything they want or not. So you can control that, learn the settings of Zoom. That's very useful. And I think the third thing, and I almost had the third thing to remember, was something or other that was a really good point, but I've completely lost it. So Mark, what would you add to that?
That's the neural load. Yeah, so Zoom bombing. So listen, this is a new one on me. So Zoom bombing is when people take control of the comm.
Yes.
And start running your meeting.
And that helped me remember. So thank you. Just note that partner right there. I just completely lost it. I owned up to it. Big deal, no shame. And Mark gave me enough room just to find it back in my head. Many of the Zooms, it defaults to, if you have a Zoom account, defaults to your cell phone number or something else that's easy to figure out. So what's happening is people are saying, I wonder if their cell phone number is their Zoom number. They get in as an attendee. They haven't set the settings off so you can't join. and then they're doing something stupid like making, weird noises or putting up rude pictures or videos in the middle of it. So just it's a simple matter of, I think, getting to know your equipment and getting to know the software. And it takes very little zooms, fairly straightforward, as is most of them. Just take a look through. So Mark, I think we're at the end of our extra 10 minutes as well. Anything else you'd like to say before we conclude here the extra session?
Oh, you know what? I'm just going to answer one question that I've just seen up here, which what's your opinion of using a flip chart or PowerPoint through the shared screen?
Right.
I was showing some people recently around using, being able to draw stuff live. The issue is it's very difficult to work with the light around these. And as you well know, Michael, I've been an advocate for many years of trying to, create content for people live in front of them. But in these situations, the camera has a hell of a job being able to work out the dark and light around that. It seems to be better off being able to work with whiteboards back here to a certain extent, but even then that's a bit risky. But luckily, Zoom has a whiteboard feature on it. Is that coming up for you, Michael Leckie?
Yep, sure is.
Yeah. So there are some options with being able to draw, charts for people, and get their participation and have them feeling like they have some agency over the content that's going on around that. So I would try and use the whiteboard function that's on there. That's my last point there. But just to finish up from my point of view, thanks everybody for joining in and thanks for being part of this. And any thoughts, any questions, any more help you want, go through Michael Leckie and get some help from us.
So anything else? And always a pleasure to thank you all for attending. Appreciate it. And have a great day. We're going to sign off. We will get this edited a little bit so it doesn't have some of the noise at the beginning, and we'll get it up at some point, probably on both of our YouTube channels, etc. But we'll send notification out to the people who attended where it can be found. Feel free to share it and pass it on anytime you're doing something to give away. We'd love to give away as many people as possible. That's it. Thank you for all the kind thanks and for the great attention and for staying on with us, so many of you. Have a great day and have a great weekend.